everybody, and Merry Christmas. Been talking about putting out another video. I've just about got it put together and edited. It's another mapping video. A lot of people wanted to talk more about that. And you know, I used that big word the other day talking about triangulation. Still can't say it right. But this is an actual deer I tracked down using the maps, and I'm actually doing it on another one now. These mature deer, even in Alabama, tracking is key. When you find a mature deer, or you see a mature deer, what then? I seen him out in the middle of, maybe you seen him out in the middle of the open woods, you know, and it's probably an accident, or maybe it's an early season. But you go down there, you got a direction on him, and you know kind of where he went. So this is going to explain kind of how what the next step is, what to do next to be able to get in there on that buck. It's going to be kind of surprising to you. It's going to be easier than you think to actually find where he's at again. And then the hard part, of course, is always you're trying to beat him at his own game, which is the wind, which is coming out in the next video. I talked a lot about thermals and the wind directions and how I'm locating these deers, and that's really coming together. Like I said, I'm not trying to be the best hunter in the world or nothing else, but this is a learning page. We're all learning together. I use y'all's comments, y'all's questions, and everything like that, and it really it's coming together better. Like I said, I've hunted since about 1986, 1985. In the last 4 years, I've changed it all. So this is new to me too. It's coming together. I've seen already this year 3 mature bucks. I mean, one beast of a buck. It's the bow hunter's blues, you know. 60 yards, he might as well be 600. But I hope this video helps. I hope it helps you get in these areas, pick out the areas, and then once you see or know him how to narrow down where he's actually bedding. After that is how do you sneak in there? How do you play the wind? When to go in there and when not. That's always the hardest one, because you always want to go in there once you find him. Once you find it's kind of the spokes on the wheels you hear other shows talk about, but that spokes on the wheel, there is a central location where that buck wants to be. So I'm going to teach you how to find that. Happy hunting. What's up, guys? I want to talk to you a little bit about, okay, you've seen that big buck. Now what do you do? How do you do it? I'm going to turn these filters on to show you how much walking and stuff that I do. This computer's a little slow. Hopefully it'll work. So you saw that big buck, and now it's time to kill him. Alright, I'm going to give an example of a deer that I hunted, I looked at and found. Just a brief kind of overview. The yellow lines here are paths. Sometimes I'll put them in. I'll track myself out. You know, because you're dodging bedding areas. You're dodging where you think deer are eating. You don't want them to smell you when you're walking in when you hunt beds. So sometimes you have to walk a long way out of the way. And that's what normally I do with these paths. It's called a path on Hunt Stand. And I started to do something a little different. And it's really starting to work out well. A couple years ago, I hunted this deer. And I saw him. I just saw a big rack running off early season. Okay. He was in somewhat open woods. It was very, very early, right before bow season, or maybe the first week of bow season. And I saw this deer at the bottom, at an area, at the very, very bottom of a ridge. These are the ridges up here. Let me see if I can get this pulled up. I got to zoom back in a little. Let's see. If you got a newer computer, you won't have to do it quite as hard as this one. But so basically there's a big huge ridge. I mean, it's a community ridge, everybody hunts it. There's another big ridge here, and you got the northwest wind. All right, so I see this big buck in this area. also see tracks in this area, all up and down in the creek. Alright, so I see him, I run him off one day. And I was, man, wonder where that bus going. Well, then I hunt the area, I see him, never see him again. It's kind of open area, there is a small thicket there, and a lot of times, you know, you find them bucks bedded up in the smallest little thick spot. Because they can hide in there and they're not coming out till dark and they'll be in there before daylight. Over here, I actually saw, you see, I had big rub there. There was a big rub there. And all this took boots on the ground walking around. But now I seen this deer 3 times in a row. Alright, this ridge right here, after the season got started, you know, there was a lot of company on this ridge. And this deer is ended up being 6.5 years old. Or 6 years old, or whatever it may be. He was a 6-year-old buck according to biologists. You know, decent deer for public land. And big heavy deer too. So I saw the deer early here. The acorn drop was not very good. All this is acorns. I mean, it's big, loaded. And then the other features are you got real steep ridges. And then you got these big creek bottoms down here that are just cut out like the Grand Canyon if you're walking in them. And one coming in there, one coming in here. So I start walking around and I hunt him and I find a spot over here and I hunt him. Didn't see nothing, but I did see tracks. Alright, I found a spot down in here off of this bottom of this ridge. I thought it was actual bedding area for him, a good thick spot. Overlooking the creek. It was early season, it was still real hot. Hunted that and I did catch a glimpse of a big deer. Didn't know if it was him or not. Couldn't find the actual trail or any tracks of him, so I wasn't sure. Alright, I moved over again and I saw another, I think I saw 4 does and I saw a small spike, I think it was, with them. Alright. Then I went and I hunted a couple times, didn't see nothing. I hunted up on the ridges because, you know, it was early season and I was the only one down there bow hunting. So I had a lot of that up top to myself. So I'm hunting up there and I see nothing. I don't see does. I don't see anything. So we had a massive rain that year. It came in and it lasted like a week. So my thing was I'll come down the ridge and look. I came down the ridge and I found a bunch of tracks. All small tracks, looked like does, small bucks. So I figured, well, you know, I'll go down there. There's a lot of deer. You know, of course, there's no rut stuff going on at this point. But so I go down there and I'm looking around and I find an area where they had just crossed that day, that morning. I come in after my morning hunt. I got down about 10:30 and I come down there and there's looked like about 6 deer had crossed there, 6 maybe 7. There was 4 trails down there low, almost in the creek. So I go down there and I said, well, you know what? It wasn't that bad of a drag. If I see any does, you know, any decent does, or, you know, I just kind of use it as an observation stand because I could be in the thick and there was openings you could see for 200 yards in front of me. The wind was coming down the hill. I was using thermals and the wind together in that bottom, which y'all know me, I don't like the bottoms. So I'm down there and I'm sitting there and this is something that you never do. First, you should never hunt somewhere you don't have confidence there's a big buck. Second, no matter where you're hunting, if that's the spot you pick, you need to take it serious and act like the biggest buck of your life's coming through. Because that's what happened to me. I'm sitting right in, let's see, I will show you exactly where, on this little knob right here. It's hard to see with the lines on it. There's a little knob right there. I got upwind of the thermals and figured them does would come through from down in this, I mean this whole area. You can't walk through this. This is thick. Alright. So I just go down there to hunt does and I'm still in the area of where I saw the big buck. So I'm sitting there and here comes a little fawn. Here comes a little spike. Here comes a nice doe, but just a yearling doe. Still, you know, wasn't nothing great. And then here comes a decent doe, but she came in and she jumped and went down this way and went around, so I never got a shot with the bow. So I was sitting there and said, man, that sucked. That'd have been a great way, to end the morning. It was getting up to about 9 o'clock. So I spin around the tree in that saddle. And when I do, I look up and I see what looked to be a big, huge cow just, boom, running up the hill. Except this cow had a bunch of horns on it, and antlers on it. And what had happened was, instead of him coming across, like the does went across this little point here, you see? This little point, and then this flat spot. He came across this point. The does had come down here just a little lower, they but 30, 40 feet. And he spun around and he went back up the hill, but I got a visual of him. So I knew I was burnt that day, and I got burnt bad because I knew he didn't smell me. But he either saw me really good, and you know how mature deer are. They're going to, when they bail, sometimes they trot off, but most of the time they bail because they know something's wrong. And he busted me bad. So I decided, all right, it's early season. I'm going to walk this area. So I go walking, and I found the tracks where he busted me. I went down in the creek. I found where he crossed the creek, went over, and then had another parallel trail that went up. And I got to thinking about this buck, so I said, all right, I'm going to hunt him, next time the wind's right. And in the bottoms, the wind's never right. So I try to hunt I get in real early, sometimes 3, 4 o'clock, sit up, and as soon as the thermals start picking up, if I think the buck is on this side of the ridge anywhere, or that he could possibly come out this way, then I pull out and I get there, because I don't want him to smell me. If he sees me, fine. If he smells you, you're done. Some of them big deer bail, some of them come back every day. So I went up the ridge and I found a huge rub. And I'm like, wow. So now I got tracks here. All the tracks are going that way. Now I knew I seen him in the morning. I seen him at 8:01 the first time. Then I saw him at 8:45 coming up. Alright. Well, I hunt this deer pretty much the next 3 weeks in different locations. I caught a glimpse of what I thought was a big deer and that. So every time I seen him or seen tracks that I knew were brand new. Now this is the key, it's got to be brand new. I drew a line where I put a marker. Well, when I got to looking at it, I go back to the hilltop or hills bedding. Every time I seen it, it came on some type of north wind. And every time I seen his location or his tracks, it was off of that north wind, and it was always headed. So I got to looking. Really and truly, if you look at this map, there's only 2 really good spots. There is a hump in here, it's hard to see, and it's really thick. There's a top ridge that runs across, and 1 million people walk it. And you can stand here for an hour and look down here, and you wouldn't be able to see me. It's thick. All this little steep, see how steep it is? And then down here, it's just thick, too. So not only is it almost straight up and down, it's also thick. But, that's prime. So when I got back and I looked at the topos, that's what I was thinking about. So I started drawing a line. I saw him here. I said, if he was, now I didn't know at the time he was bedding here. But I said, if he was here, now I've seen this deer 3 times, maybe 4. I said, all right, if he was bedded here, I'm going to draw a line to where I've seen him. And then, if he was bedded here, because there's 2 locations and they're only about 150 yards apart. All right, then boom, he's bedded there. Now I wanted to see where that line crossed. I said, well, that's cool. All right, next time I saw him or saw tracks, I think it was just tracks and a new fresh rub on this one. So I put a pin there. I drew a line to here. I was supposed to draw a line to there, but I didn't because obviously it's already convoluted here. And then I came down here. About 5 rubs and 1 scrape in the middle of October, late October. I'm like, wait a minute now, we're getting onto something. He's here, and it was his footprint. He's got a huge track. So I said, all right there. Now if he's bedded there, boom, there's a little hump, there's a little knob, And there's a ditch that brings all them thermals up. That's another thing you got to understand. You know, I'm using everything I know about how they bed. So I know the thermals are going to pull up. I know the wind's coming out of the north, and he is in, I mean, you're not going to get to him. If he gets up there, you're never going to get to him. Alright. And there was another one. Bam, drew a line. I start seeing all these X's come together. And that's what I mean by triangulating. My thought was he's here at the top of this ditch. Alright, but then I see occasionally, and I never did figure out exactly what he was thinking, but occasionally he'd come down here real low and never get out of the creek. Now, I wish I'd have had cameras and weather data and all that. I'm just doing all this because of the terrain, and I'm keeping up with the weather every day. So that's all I got. I don't use the cameras. I've got them. I'm going to start back using them this year. But, you know, I'm like, what is he doing? Why is he way here? Because, you know, I'm thinking that straight line. They're very efficient. Something else cool I'll show you in a minute. But, so he's down here, and I'm looking, and I see here, and I see him not go through this X. Boom. And he goes to the end of this tip. And then I see another place where he crosses, and it's brand new. I thought I had him. I heard a deer, so I went down here and investigated. I went down here and looked around, and it was him. It was his big old tracks, and he had 2 new rubs down there. And it looked like to there. Now, I never went in this area. I never went down here looking. Well, I got to watching the ridge, and I looked, and it had a little hump that come down. There was a major trail coming across, and then right here is a 4-inch round cedar tree, shredded from top to bottom. I'm like, okay, now I'm filling in the blanks is what I'm trying to get at. All right. One of my hunts, I should have said this earlier. All right, I'm coming down on this north wind. A deer, real deep voice deer, starts blowing real heavy right here. So I'm thinking, all right, wait a minute. Now I got blue at down here before, sounded like some does maybe, just didn't have that. It didn't have that man voice to it, you know. 2 times I got busted. Now I've been smelled. And I know, I mean, in my mind, it's this deer. It's the biggest deer on the block, just by the sound of it, how deep it was. One big blow, and then there's nothing, and you don't see anything. I saw some does, this, that, and the other down here. But what I was doing, I was walking down this ridge. I snuck way around through this thing, and came in this way and went straight down this ridge. My thoughts were he's coming out of here. This north wind that was coming this way, okay, should have blown my scent this way, which it did. And that's this yellow line. That's how he's coming. I found this later. It took me a while to figure out exactly what he's doing. That was one of the ways he's coming in. That's how I thought he was coming in. And sometimes he did off of this tip. I think he was bedding there at night on them acorns. But I got blown at 2 times in a row with the wind coming across like that. What I figured out was he was actually feeding over here. So I found a big rub here. I got stand locations I've never hunted, but I've thought about hunting. And this deer was coming down, and he'd either come through here, which is the most prevalent one. He'd come down this little ditch, and then he would J-hook in. Now, how many times y'all heard me say about the J-hook? This deer's J-hook is hundreds of yards. I mean, let's see. It's about right there to there. All right. 558 yards. So, most of the deer, and this is the only deer I've ever seen do that, and he's one of the older deer I've killed down here. So, most of the deer's J-hook are 150 yards max. That's all I really look at. What I found out, though, see, I'm sneaking in down this ridge. All right, right down this ridge here. And I depending on the thermals, depending on the time of day, I'd hunt him low, I'd hunt him high. But when I started drawing all those lines, I started looking at these beds here. But I was getting that voice down here 2 times. That second time is when it really dawned on me. I said, this deer's got a 500,000 yards, whatever. A long way away is his J-hook. Now, I used to park here. I'd come down this awful hill. It's terrible. And then I'd walk way down this valley circle way around, and I was blowing him out. So then I just started driving by like everybody else does. You know, everybody hears that gravel, da-da-da-da-da-da. Well, I start driving by, and I started parking down here. Now, north wind, but I'm up here thinking it's going this way, northeast in early year, part of November that year. All right, so I park here, and then I walk in, and I go down that ridge, straight down this way, down the ridge, which is all the signs down here. What I noticed is which the direction it was, so I started pointing lines at two areas that I thought were the best bedding area. And you got to keep that in mind with the bigger bucks. They're going to take the best bedding because they can. You know what? If all you got to do is go run the little buck out of the best Hilton or Marriott hotel and you're going to get the best suite in there, well, then you do that. And that's what he did. So now I've got it narrowed down to these two spots, there and there. Now I came in here with binoculars, and I looked and looked and looked, and I could not see in there because I figured I could catch him. North wind, my wind here, I was like right here on this point trying to see if I could spot him. Never could see him because it was too thick, which, you know, that's another plus. So I get tired of it. I'm getting beat. I'm tired. I don't want to go in there anymore, and I want to break. So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to go for a stalk hunt. It was really wet. The rains had been coming in. I knew I could get in quiet. So I said, I'm going to hunt this area. This red line here is a clear cut with a road in the middle of it. Kind of open clear cut. Over here it's really thick. And then there's a ridge here. And the side of a side ridge, which a lot of deer use. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to do an observation hunt. And I'm going to go down here and just see it where I can see. Now, is it possible for me to kill a big deer? Absolutely. This whole valley here, everything over here is just open acorns. There's a real thick creek bottom. Not thick like I like them, but I mean, it's thick enough. First thing I find is this big rub. I think this is a scrape. Yeah, there we go. Covered in large rubs. I marked it. So I'm like, wow. And these rubs are large by not big trees. You know, a lot of people get confused about that. Large is how tall they are. You start getting them waist to chest high rubs, when they're that high off the ground, and it's on trees they can't bend over, hunt that deer. But now I think, oh man, this deer's going everywhere. Well, I get to looking at the sides of the trees. I get to looking at the trails. And, of course, there's trails going this way. But then I find tracks. And I start finding tracks going up this ditch. North wind now. And this is early in the year. North wind coming down this thicket. And he hits right here. And he goes right down this transition here. The last transition before the creek. And then he cuts. And which north wind, you know, how much north wind he's got. Like, if it's straight on, he was coming straight on. Kind of like that, cut in. And then if it was like a northwest wind, he was digging down here deeper. And I said, you know what? I know now. I know he's bedded on these ridges. I started seeing these big rubs here going in. I said, man, this is something. So now we're getting into December. This is a month. I've let deer pass. I've let some really nice does pass. Really nice 8-point buck pass. I mean, he was a 2.5-year-old, but he was pretty nice. And I drew back on him. It's gun season. They're killing this ridge. There's people all over this ridge. And, you know, every one of these stands, you see how many stand locations I got marked just there, and that ain't even all of them. But it's just for that wind. These were failures looking for this deer. Some of these were like, okay, if it's a south wind and he leaves here, boom. If it's a southwest wind, boom. I'm trying to cut him off. I don't have any more down here because once I figure out he's here, I know I can't get in this area. If I get over here, them thermals are going to pull it to him. If I get anywhere near this ditch, in the daytime, them thermals are pulling them up. Now, in the morning, I can sneak down here and try to cut him off, which I did do, and I blew it. I'm looking for these X's. That X there, where all them lines came together, this X, and then this X is where I really was looking at because, you know, there's a lot of lines coming together. And if I got just an off wind, I thought maybe I could get a shot, which is what happened. So I triangulated all those areas in. Now this took 2.5 months. I thought I blew him out several times, but no matter what, when I'd get up here and look around, there'd be one little lone trail. It was amazing, especially once the rut started to key up, which is what saved me. But you'd see that one little bitty faded trail, and it'd be going right into where I thought he was. So I'd try to hunt it, and I'd see another one. Then for a while, it came down here. And then finally, I'm at the top of this ditch. Thermal's pulling up in the daytime, and here come this little doe. And when she got there, guess what happened? He got here. And that's where I finally killed that buck. Big old 9-point. I think it's a 132. Big for me. I really enjoyed the hunt. And the method behind it was cool because it's recreatable. Not every deer gets locked into an exact area unless it's perfect. If it is a perfect bedding area, you can't go in there. So you got to hunt them outskirts, and it takes some luck, and you're going to see this deer, and it's going to drive you crazy, and you say, oh man, I'm going to sit up right there where I saw him. I did it 2 weeks ago. You can't help it. I know you can't help it because I can't help it. Nobody can help it. I sat up down there, and I seen this deer actually move to the thicker way in. If you could hunt every day, you could follow him into that thick stuff knowing he's going to do it. Then you can get him off the wind a little bit. But just a tip, you can do this. You got to spend a lot of time. You got to look for his tracks out here 500-600 yards away. You got to know that in the morning when he's coming back, he's doing his J-hook. Right there's where he crossed it last time, right before I killed him. He come right through that thicket, jumped. There's a little road there, and it was his track. He come right down this, and this was probably what got him, because he went. South wind, excuse me. That was a south wind there. Let's see. Yeah, there it was, a south wind right there. Don't steal my latitude and longitude, because I already killed her. But he run that thicket on a south wind, and I'm not sure if he went in it. I'm pretty sure he did. But it was a rut, so he's probably trailing a doe in. But anyway, I just fixated. I said, this deer was going this way. This deer was going down. And then when I started seeing, this was where I started seeing bam, 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 bam. And he was leaving sign. It was in really thick creek bottom stuff. And then right there is where them X's were. So, something to think about. Mark those. We got the cell phones now. When you see them big tracks and you know it's that deer, a lot of people are using cameras. And like I said, I'm going to get back to doing it. I love doing it. It was fun to get the pictures, but I couldn't keep myself out of there. I felt like I was always blowing my deer out. By doing it this way, I hunted, then I looked, because there was already scent in there. Now I wait 3 weeks or so, and I go back in, boom. These hunts, morning or evening, if you're hunting them early mornings, which is how I ditch, when it just got light, I think it was about 9 o'clock or so, and the thermals were pulling up, he came down, and bam, that doe got him. But I knew where he was at. So just think about that. If you like it, I hope so. If not, give me any tips, anything I can do better, because, I'll take tips from anybody. I'm learning this, trying to find that specific deer in that specific bed is a real challenge. So if there's anything you can do to help me out, I would appreciate it.